Hello, everyone. This is Albert Espinoza, and this is week two of MPA 585 Political Economy for Dr. Powell's course at Cal Baptist University. And this week, we'll be talking about market failures and government intervention. The market failure I'll be touching on is the one of the American automotive industry back from the late 2000s, where Ford, GM, and Chrysler basically went to the US government for a bailout. At that time, Congress provided the provisions necessary for them to continue their operations with an $80.7 billion bailout in order to keep these three U.S. automotive manufacturers afloat. So, what happened to these three automotive companies that they had to go ask for the U.S. government's assistance and basically a bailout in order to stay afloat? A couple factors contributed to it. These car manufacturers weren't meeting the US and global market demands. In the late 2000s, ideologies were shifting, and public's perspective and a global perspective was they wanted more efficient cars, and so these three manufacturers weren't exactly top of the line. I have a picture of a Hummer there, which is what GM was selling great in the early 2000s. But as gas prices were going up, and from a different global perspective, people wanted more efficient vehicles. Electric cars were coming out. CNG, which is natural gas vehicles, were also making the big hit in the mid 2000s, late 2000s. So these three car manufacturers weren't keeping up with the research and development necessary to compete with other car manufacturers such as Toyota and Honda. So it had kind of gone stale again as uh, you know perspectives of efficiency were changing. So these types of vehicles, like these big SUVs and Hummers, which were considered gas guzzlers, were creating negative externalities. Since they were inefficient vehicles, they were polluting the air. And so again, this change in what people were looking for, these car manufacturers weren't able to meet. Other things that affected it, yeah, the recession hit in late 2000, but again, even before that happened, these companies were not, keeping the research and development and keeping up with the demands of what people wanted, not just in the U.S. but globally. One good thing that did come from it, since the government did bail them out, they had the opportunity to uh, do regulations. So they imposed a lot of new technology that these car manufacturers needed to do. So on top of not just giving them the provisions to keep moving forward, government regulated them with forcing them to uh, make more efficient vehicles to meet the demands not just of a new U.S. perspective, but a global perspective. At the time of the bailout, these three automotive companies contributed about 3.6% to the U.S. Gross domestic product, the GDP, which was translated to about $500 billion. So, a lot of people ask, why would Congress help these three American automotive companies stay afloat? And that's a good reason why they did contribute to GDP. So there is the economic factor of keeping them, not just a nostalgia factor of keeping GM, Ford, and Chrysler around. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Here's my references, and I hope to hear from you and read those comments. You have a great one. Bye.